And then as we get ready to wind down here, let's talk about training program communication tactics. Communication is talking, and it is also listening, right? Or not talking, I guess, putting information out and then receiving information in. And so like anything, if we want involvement and participation, you need to have a communications plan. And so that means having a company-wide training program launch, getting people excited about it, getting people excited about your training program and interested in what they can do to improve themselves personally and professionally and how they can contribute to making the company or the project or the crew better or the best. And really emphasizing those things and making it interesting, you know, so talking about who should attend these trainings, you know, when should you make these announcements? I just had a meeting yesterday on this, and we're going to have another meeting on Friday talking about what are the things we can do to improve our communications on getting people these announcements of the classes and making them interesting announcements and relevant, and is the message we're sending communicating to people well enough of the need and the interest and motivating them to participate. You know, so what should be in the announcement and how should we communicate it? Should this be an email blast? Should this be a phone call? Should this be something that gets posted? Should this be something that gets talked about by their supervisors? Should this be something we mail to people's houses? You get the idea, right? So all different ways. Should we communicate this on social media, right? So lots of different ways to put that out. And I mentioned this, creating new mindsets, really making sure that in our communication strategy, we're focusing on preparing people to learn, preparing people to disprove what they already know, and preparing people for professional development and personal growth, right? New mindsets, we're looking for new results, and we want to be able to measure these results, and people should know that, hey, we're out there measuring, we're going to ask you about what you learned, we're going to come out, and we're going to follow up with you in the field. We're going to have some follow-up activities because of Ebbinghouse's forgetting curve. We do these because we're trying to get better retention. So explain the why behind the what. Adults need to know that. It needs to be logical and it needs to have value for what's in it for them. So if you just go out and you're doing these observations, you're questioning people after their class, or you're doing these activities after a course, but you're not explaining that you're actually doing that to help people retain better by applying what they learned, it may have the opposite effect of what you're looking for. So really think about your communication strategy. And then, you know, pivot on purpose. Where do you want to be and how do you need to get there? Where are your weak points? Where are your strong points? And, you know, what are some of the tactics that you can employ to get yourself headed back in the right direction? You know, you may have started off with a great training program and it's kind of tailed off. You may not have had a true training program. What are you measuring, and how can you get back on track? Okay, so some of the ways you might do this is through performance reviews. Maybe in your reviews you talk about training that they need to attend, or training that you identify that you want them to attend. How you doing with that? Are employees holding up their end of the bargain? Are you holding up your end of the bargain? Are there gaps in completion and passing rates, and how are you going to address that? Employee satisfaction. What feedback loops are you receiving from your employees? And this is so important, to listen to our workers. Any suggested changes or ideas should be looked at and considered, and give people closure and follow-up. If you looked into one of their recommendations, but you're not going to do it, reach out and let them know that, hey, you looked at this, we're not ready to do this yet, and here's why. Or that you're doing a part of it, or that you're implementing it because of them. People want to know that their feedback is being taken. I recently took a class and I gave some feedback at the end of the course. There was an activity that was kind of not relevant, and it was a little bit frustrating because it was over everybody's head, and the students in the class were getting frustrated, and I thought, nobody's going to write this down, so of course I'm going to write it down. And so I gave some really thoughtful, I thought meaningful feedback, and I didn't hear anything back. I asked about it later. I said, did you folks read my feedback? And they all looked at me funny, and I said, why do you even ask for it if you're not going to do anything with it? You know, that was frustrating. And so don't frustrate people. If you ask for feedback, then there's a purpose for that, and have a process to deal with it, okay? New courses. Are there new rules? Are there new regulations? Are there new positions or policies that require revision to your class or new classes? And is what you're doing still relevant? And have you updated it, or should it be put to pasture? Logistics. Is the current training schedule working with your production schedules? Are there missed sessions and opportunities for folks to catch up if they missed a piece, or could you reschedule it? That could become a nightmare, so be careful with that. But is your onboarding program effective and efficient? And is the training room up to par, right? Is it a place where people want to come to learn and they're comfortable? And then I mentioned this before, very important, return on investment. Are you meeting your training program SMART goals? How are you measuring it? What are your key performance indicators? How can you show this? How could you take that data to management and be able to support and reinforce your training program? So this is from our website. I love this saying from Harvey Firestone: the growth and development of people is the highest calling of leadership. It's so true. Our growth and our development of how we train folks, of how we teach them how to do business smarter and better, and how to involve them in teams and learning organizations. Huge. It's an honor to be able to teach people something and to have that add value. And it's a big responsibility to make sure that it's accurate and relevant and that it hits the mark. Okay, so I want to encourage you to go back and look at your training programs if you have one. If you don't have one, to develop one. And I'd like to encourage you to go back and maybe you find yourself with more time than normal, go back and do an evaluation of your program, do a gap analysis. What do you say you will do versus what you've been doing? And do you have goals? Are you meeting the goals? Have you met the goals? And where could you make some improvements, right? I think that's important. All right, I would like to open this up, looking to see if we have any questions. I see Nalani answered a few folks here. And I just want to see if anybody has any questions. Somebody asked, Deborah asked if anybody knows if anybody can translate material for Ilocano. I think there's some of the state organizations that can do translations for free, and some of the tourism authorities. So you might look there, Deborah. Anybody else that'd like to say, what questions do you have for me? I want to encourage you to use the resources that we provided on our website, and encourage you to take a little bit of time before you jump back into work today to complete your safety pivot. So I'll stand by for a couple minutes to see if anybody has any other questions.